Okay, broader market update here. September 2nd, Friday night, we have our full weekly candle. We also, of course, have our first vestiges or our monthly candle for September. We'll start with the daily chart. We actually have it's so close to being failed that it's hard to call it a swing low, but I guess I should say we had a swing low today at some point, which would have made day 52 yesterday, September 1st, a swing low. Now we're going to have to see. It could be the case that we actually get a bullish move on Monday and follow through next week, and that is our daily cycle low. This would leave a lot of people off sides, like this red candle. And if you look at the weekly, this kind of moved down. So this is what looks like an RICH, right? Our intermediate cycle high, our weekly cycle high. And then we had bearish follow through, actually a gap down, right? So that's important, right? So there's a gap from here to here. And then, yeah, right. This was actually a gap down opening as well. We did fill the gap and then continue to move lower on week 11. So you have to imagine there's going to be a rally at some point, right? Because things don't fall in a straight line. So we did like something like that. And then we did this. And then we did like that. So we're going to do something like that. And then that, right? Like that. You could imagine. Obviously, another scenario is that we do something like that, right? If you're bullish, you're hoping it's something more like that, right? Like, we do come here, but then we base and then we move higher, right? So these are all scenarios, though, and so we have to see kind of how it plays out. At this point, to your eyeball, this is I hope it's very clear. This is a waterfall decline. Now, again, it's totally possible that because it's still a higher low technically of all of this move, right? If you look at this move as a whole, this is still a higher low to that. If we were to get a move up, right? But if you're playing the probabilities, right? And if we look at the monthly chart and think about what that means for the longer term cycle, this is a textbook example of how a candle can transform, right? At one point, this candle, and this is your August candle, which is closed now, right? Because we now have actually a couple of days of trading for the September candle. We have the Thursday and Friday, and let's just to be clear, we closed below the low from last month. So we closed below the low from August. That is incredibly bearish, right? Like that means no matter who bought at any point in August, any person, any purchase in the month of August is underwater now, by definition. Like it has to be, right? Because we just closed below. Obviously, maybe you sold at some point in the last couple of days and you got out. Well, and good for you. But like as of right now, anyone's still kind of holding. Like, and think about how green this was. Like this whole wick. Think about that. That's important. Like this channel is about education. Anywhere there's a wick means that was part of the body of the candle. At one point, this was green. It was bright green. We were making higher highs on the monthly chart, and it looked like we had just made a higher low, right? Like we had just, we're ready to move. And so that's so important to kind of understand. And so the same thing can happen bearish to bullish, bullish to bearish. You have to have your head on a swivel. That's important. But right now, things are leaning quite bearish on the long to intermediate term time frame. even if on the daily time frame, we could be getting a daily cycle low soon, which means a rally for at least a few days, right? Just at least a few days. So that's the S&P 500 cash. Let's look at the QQQ, the ETF that tracks the NASDAQ 100. And it's all the same picture. Did not quite make the low, but I mean, my God, got really close. So still hanging by a thread, day 53 hanging as the low so far. So probably more downside next week, but we'll have to see. Same thing on the weekly. I'll just adjust this. Week 9, ICH most likely. Again, totally possible that this entire move, this is still a higher low, right? Totally possible for us to, optimistic scenario. There's no reason why that can't happen, right? But like that is a waterfall decline. That's a lot of sell pressure. So it's like, well, where's all the buy pressure to take it all the way back up in like a V shape? I don't know. It's a good question. And on the monthly, same thing. Closed below the low of last month. And again, this was plenty green. Look at the levels it was breaking, right? It was very promising. Like, okay, right, we got a swing low. Maybe month 27 was our major cycle low. Instead, it looks more like this is month 30 of the 3-year cycle, and we're still declining into the 3-year cycle low. And just to be clear, that's the same thing for SPX, right? And so if you assume it's a 36-month cycle, we still, we have downside into the end of the year and into the beginning of next. Like, as this line says, right? Like, probably somewhere around March of 2023 is what we might expect. And there are other analysts that like are tracking like 7-year cycles, etc. These things have a tendency, like there are confluences of them, right? Like they all kind of happen around the same time. And the IWM, at one point the 3-year cycle is going to converge with the 7-year cycle and like even longer term cycles. And so the IWM, same idea in this case, right? Day 53 holding as your low so far. Same thing. All the same count for the most part on the weekly. All the same count on the weekly for sure. Slightly different counts on the daily. But potential waterfall decline here. Let's see if it actually holds as a higher low. That'll definitely be quite the bullish reversal to keep people on their toes. And again, this one was looking incredible. I mean, look, we were almost making highs above this cluster of swing highs right here, right? That was a big move right here. And then just reversed completely. And now we seem to be headed closer to 166 in this case, which will be the big test. Again, this is IWM, small caps. So caution is warranted here. It would seem the weekly cycle decline continues. Look out for the sort of write-up on just, the cycle counts, etc. That always focuses on SPX. But again, I think that is driving the bus. That is also telling you about metals and other assets as well. In general, it's a bit of a liquidity crunch, especially because, again, the Dixie is moving like a beast. And I looked at the Dixie in the precious metals update, which you'll see in the description as usual. But this thing has just been moving. Look at that weekly. Look at this monthly. My God, it's driving liquidity crunch.